Hello, today we are going to talk about Age of Propaganda. This book, co-authored by renowned American psychologists Elliot Aronson and Anthony Protkonis, is titled Age of Propaganda, The Everyday Use and Abuse of Persuasion. From the subtitle, it's clear that the book explores how carefully crafted messages manipulate our cognition through propaganda techniques, influencing our judgments and decisions. With the rapid development of information technology, we are surrounded by information almost constantly. According to the book, Americans spend half of their day consuming media content, whether it be through television, radio, or newspapers. Even when the book was first published, the US consumed 57% of the world's advertising resources. With the rise of smartphones and the internet, this proportion has only increased, and it is no longer confined to the US but has become a global trend. You might have had similar experiences. For instance, an older family member may have been persuaded to buy expensive health supplements at a wellness seminar, or you might have come across sensationalized breaking news on social media. Often, such information isn't aimed at conveying genuine viewpoints, but rather uses symbols and emotional strategies to trap us into accepting predetermined conclusions. What's more concerning is that information creators and distributors are continually optimizing their methods, making these manipulations increasingly subtle and effective. Although this book mainly discusses the situation in the US with the growth of the internet and globalization, this phenomenon has spread worldwide and deserves our attention. So, what are the potential consequences of this unchecked influx of external information? On a small scale, it could lead to personal decision-making errors and hinder the development of clear thinking frameworks. On a larger scale, if most people can't distinguish between true and false information and are easily manipulated, society's development may face greater uncertainty and danger. That's why the authors wrote this book, to help us identify and resist these forms of cognitive manipulation. In the preface, the authors clearly state their goal: to analyze these biases from the perspective of social psychology, exploring how propaganda exploits our cognitive vulnerabilities to influence the public. Now, let's break down the core content of this book into three main parts. In the first section, we'll explore how deliberate cognitive manipulation and malicious information spread can effectively influence our behavior and decision-making. In the second section, we'll discuss why even seemingly absurd information can still be believed, and which cognitive biases they exploit. Finally, in the third section, we'll review the methods proposed by the authors to recognize and resist cognitive manipulation. Alright, let's start by examining how deliberate cognitive manipulation and malicious information spread effectively influence our behavior and decision-making. The authors believe that when external information tries to influence us, it typically follows two paths, the peripheral route and the central route. Simply put, these reflect the two modes of thinking we use when processing information. Throughout evolution, humans have developed fixed behavior patterns and cognitive pathways that help us avoid danger and respond to challenges. However, in modern society, these pathways also have side effects. As psychologist Daniel Kahneman describes in his book Thinking, Fast and Slow, humans have two thinking systems, fast thinking and slow thinking. Fast thinking relies on intuition and instinct, reacting quickly but prone to errors, while slow thinking is more focused on rational analysis, though it requires more effort and is used less frequently. In information dissemination, the peripheral route involves our quick, intuitive responses, while the central route requires deeper thinking. To manipulate our cognition, information creators often aim to engage our fast thinking more, thus designing messages that are simple and straightforward, targeting our instincts and intuition. For instance, in a nightclub, a young, attractive salesperson might promote cocktails or cigarettes. The salesperson's appearance and the club's ambience can prompt customers to make purchasing decisions without much thought. After understanding how information affects our thinking, let's look at the strategies for effective cognitive manipulation. The authors highlight four key elements: pre-persuasion, the credibility of the information source, the ability to manage the audience's focus, and emotional control. First, cognitive manipulation often begins with pre-persuasion, which involves creating a favorable environment before delivering information, setting up a framework that guides the audience to think along the desired lines. So, how do manipulators construct these frameworks? They often guide opinions by attaching an easily accepted label to a topic. When the audience agrees with the label, they unconsciously accept the underlying framework. For example, there was a new medication in the US that claimed to effectively relieve joint pain, and its advertisement stated, "The compound formula has been verified by professional doctors with outstanding results." This high-end sounding statement made many people willing to spend more money on it. However, the compound formula was merely ordinary aspirin mixed with a little caffeine. Yet, the term compound formula gave people the false impression that it had high technical content and was expensive. While caffeine can indeed enhance pain relief, it may also cause addiction, a side effect that was conveniently omitted from the advertisement. The core of this type of propaganda lies in exaggerating familiar characteristics and giving people specific psychological cues. As the authors say, the label attached to something directly influences how we perceive it. The second element of cognitive manipulation is the credibility of the information source. A credible source can significantly enhance the persuasive power of information. In the book, 2 examples illustrate this point. In the first story, researchers on the streets of New York asked passersby for money. When the researcher was dressed casually, he only received $7 in an hour. But after changing into a suit, he collected $26 in just 1 hour, plus someone even bought him coffee. This demonstrates how appearance can greatly influence people's judgment of information. The second story involves the construction of nuclear submarines. After World War II, the US planned to build nuclear submarines, but many people thought it was unrealistic. Researchers asked volunteers to read material supporting the feasibility of nuclear submarines. Initially, the volunteers weren't convinced, but once they learned that the material was written by the famous nuclear physicist Robert Oppenheimer, many changed their minds and believed it. This shows that people are more likely to trust information from authority figures. This use of credibility is common in advertising. For example, a food company once had the famous actor Bill Cosby endorse a pudding product. Cosby had played a pediatrician in a popular TV show, so many parents associated him with a reliable doctor figure, which boosted the product's sales. The third element of cognitive manipulation is managing the audience's focus. Effective propaganda can make people focus on a particular piece of information while ignoring other content. The book mentions an energy-saving renovation plan launched by the US government, where the initial response rate was only 15%. Later, when the message was reframed using specific, vivid descriptions, like comparing the total gaps in a house to a basketball-sized hole where heat escapes during winter, the urgency of the problem became more apparent to homeowners, and over 60% decided to participate in the renovation. So why are vivid messages so effective? The authors explain that vivid information is easier to capture attention, helping it stand out amidst the overwhelming amount of information. It also reduces the complexity of understanding, making complicated content easier to digest. Moreover, such information can guide the audience to focus on specific points the creators want to emphasize, leaving a lasting impression and affecting our cognition in the long term. The fourth key element of cognitive manipulation is emotional control. Emotions, especially fear, can be highly effective in persuasion. By triggering fear, manipulators can induce a constant state of anxiety in the audience, guiding them towards certain actions. For instance, during World War II, Hitler manipulated the German public by instilling fear of the destruction of the German nation. However, for fear to be truly effective, 2 conditions must be met. There must be content capable of eliciting strong fear, and there must be a clear and simple action plan to address the fear. Both are necessary. Aside from fear, identity also plays a significant role in manipulation. People maintain their self-awareness and meet their need for belonging and self-worth through identifying with certain groups, which also affects how they interact with others. The authors cite an interesting experiment. When Manchester United fans saw someone in a Manchester United jersey fall, over 90% rushed to help, but when the person was wearing a Liverpool jersey, the percentage dropped to 30%. This shows the profound influence identity has on human behavior. Manipulators often exploit this psychology, creating a sense of "we're in this together" to gain trust. For example, Phone scammers may claim to share a similar background with their victims, quickly building a false sense of identity to gain their trust. Now that we've covered these fundamentals,